and welcome to the Oxford Concert for Peace. You are all appreciated for being here and being part of this auspicious occasion. I want to acknowledge in a special way the presence of Lady Solti, whose husband founded the orchestra in 1995. Hello. You are profoundly welcome. I also wish to welcome Professor Maggie Snowlin, President of St. John's College, Oxford, and her husband. Ma'am, your presence is much appreciated. My name is David Kujabi, and I come from a small, beautiful country called the Gambia. I am a Rotary Peace Fellow, and I am a police officer by profession. Between 2015 and 2017, I had the opportunity to serve as a peacekeeper in Darfur, Sudan. I went there with the naive hope to bring them peace, but unfortunately, I left knowing that I didn't give much of that. The problem was not because I did not try, but it was because I was part of a quagmire of activities that did not address the real issues. I knew then that in order to succeed in the arena of peace, I needed to study and understand the dynamics of conflict and learn how best to approach them. Today, through the help of Rotary Foundation, I have gained much knowledge to put me in good stead to make this world a more peaceful place. We are gathered here today in observance of International Day of Peace. On this day, the United Nations invites peoples and nations to honor a cessation of hostilities and commemorate the day through education and public awareness on peace-related issues. Actually, I can't imagine a better way of celebrating this day than through music with the World Orchestra for Peace. Since 1981, there has been that yearning for global peace, a desire which sadly continues to be elusive. The violent conflicts in Syria, Yemen, South Sudan, the continued bombing of innocent lives in Afghanistan, the xenophobic attacks in South Africa, deaths from starvation and diseases like Ebola and malaria are the painful realities of the world we call home. As though those were not enough problems, the threat of climate change looms menacingly around us. It is only apt that this year, the International Day of Peace is themed around climate action. As individuals, we may be tempted to think that since we are not directly affected, it should not be a problem to care about. However, as a people, I ask the question, who are we without love? For if we say we love, then we must make sure that the hungry are fed, the naked clothed, the homeless sheltered, the sick nourished, the vulnerable protected, and the oppressed freed. These are desirables that are enshrined in the Sustainable Development Goals, and their realization should be a collective responsibility. Weapons of mass destruction continue to be a threat to humanity, and their continued existence and development questions our commitment to peace. Global peace can only be attained through collective action. Therefore, it is about time that we get out of our comfort zones, rest not on our laurels, but join a global partnership for peace. Let us all join the demand for our leaders to pursue peaceful paths to resolving conflicts. Let each one of us as individuals sow and propagate the seed of peace. Let us be part of the building blocks that bridge harmony within communities. Let us be a force that reinforces collective security. Let us strive to live through the universal values of respect for life, justice, solidarity, human rights, and equality between men and women. We must not give up on the quest for a better and safer world, but rather we must redouble our efforts in achieving a violence-free world. Irrespective of our background or career, we can all practice and promote the culture of peace. Let the teacher teach peace. Let the pilot fly a mission of peace. Let the religious preach peace. Let the soldier fight for peace. Let the politician advocate for peace. And let the musician play the music for peace. So, as I invite Charles Kay to come and introduce to us our musicians, I urge that the World Orchestra for Peace play that music of peace and love. Fill this theater and our hearts with music of peace so that we can go and spread it out to the world. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Lady Schulte, our patron and co-founder with Sir George of this orchestra. She has traditionally, every concert, welcomed the orchestra, who are old friends, and so I just wanted you to say a few words, please.
Thank you very much, Charles, and Charles has been so much part of this from its inception. My husband, who was born in 1912 in Hungary, was a refugee during the Second World War, and he knew what it was like suddenly to be without any documents, any papers, any friends, any country that he could go back to. And really, this whole idea, he was passionate about peace and the concept of living together in peace. And I think he would say that it's our duty, all of us, to make the effort. It's all very well to sit, switch on the television, do all that, but actually, in our day-to-day life, we have a duty, having got so far in our lives, and many of us enjoyed long periods of peace, but we have a duty, all of us, to make peace happen and for it to continue. Dear orchestra, the World Orchestra for Peace, thank you so much for keeping Schulte's dream going, and also Charles, who's done all the spade work, kept it going over all these years, and everybody who has made it possible to happen. You come from all over the world, and you play with such generosity and happiness, and you can see in their faces they have love. They have love in making music and making music for a public. So in Schulte's name, he's here somewhere. He got his honorary degree from Oxford many years ago, here, right here. And he will be looking down or smiling and saying, my dears, thank you so very, very much. And do keep going. We all have a duty now, more than ever, to continue this initiative for peace. Thank you, and I hope that everybody here this evening will enjoy the concert and continue with the idea. We all have this duty now. So we have to make a concerted effort together to continue where we've got so far. We have a big future ahead of us, but it's in our hands to make it work. Thank you.
Thank you, Valerie. And welcome to the musical part of this evening's. I'm not going to speak very long, but we felt that on this, possibly the last UN World Peace Day, where we are united with Europe, we thought we would offer a guided tour through the best of some of the European music. And basically we have a program of serenades, and we start with one of the most famous of them all, Eine kleine Nachtmusik of Mozart. This was written in 1782, and Eine kleine Nachtmusik means a little serenade, actually. And this piece, you will notice each piece will be led by a different one of our concertmasters, all of whom play the first violin, come from different orchestras. And I want to introduce Bertrand Servera, who is the concertmaster of the Orchestre National de France, one of the great French orchestras. He will direct Eine kleine Nachtmusik. Before I go, may I thank you, Rotary, in particular Bruce Gow and Andrew Bartholomew, for making this evening possible. I don't know in your wildest dreams that you thought it would happen, but it has happened. And what moved me when you first wrote to me was how important peace is to Rotary. I had no idea. And I also want to thank the Rotary Foundation, who look after Rotary worldwide and raise as much money as is possible for their 6 good causes, of which they are most passionate. Peace is at the head of them. And therefore they wanted this to happen on UN World Peace Day, and here we are. So over to you, Bertrand, dear orchestra. Enjoy Mozart's Eine kleine Nachtmusik.
I guess I don't need to say that that was excellent. Thank you so much. I now want to invite one of my colleagues, a Rotary Fellow, in the person of Rina Al-Sumari. Rina is from Syria. Rina is a human rights activist, and she has been working with refugees in Syria, Lebanon, and Jordan. I am happy to say that as of yesterday, Rina was appointed Ambassador for Global Peace Chain. I want to congratulate her and welcome her to say a few words to us. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Ladies and gentlemen, I was asked today to describe in just 4 minutes what peace should mean for a peace activist coming from a country burned with war. To be honest, it was a hard decision to make, choosing what to say and how to describe what peace could mean after 9 years of war. A war which lasted even longer than the Second World War. But rather than the World War, this long-term distraction and revealing the lives of more than 500,000 people and displaced half of the population in just one country, which is my homeland, Syria. Could you imagine now my situation? To get out of this dilemma, I'm going to share with you one of the hardest moments I have been through, which indeed means nothing compared to what Syrian people have been suffered from on a daily basis in the last 9 years. It is another 4 minutes as well, but this time it was different in place and time. It goes back to 2013, where I was just waiting in the borders between Syria and Lebanon, carrying books and a lot of PDF documents about peace building and conflict resolution from the last workshop I have attended in Lebanon, to use them later on in educating other activists in my city about these important topics. Before crossing the borders, I was just terrified to recall a memory of a friend who had been arrested before on the borders because he was also participating in one of these workshops. The Syrian authorities at that time and still prohibiting any civil society engagement to solve the conflict. My question at that time was too simple. Do I have to carry all of these documents and materials? Or should I leave all of them behind? At that exact time, I remembered my beloved city at the south of Syria, Sweden. This small city of almost 700,000 population, many of its people welcomed more than 300,000 displaced, fleeing from other cities, without setting up one tent. While nowadays, other countries that have received billions of dollars for hosting Syrian refugees, still planning to send them back to the war. Ladies and gentlemen, I was thinking while I was writing these words, how could I describe what this should be while the war is not over, while my country, my people, still suffering? And I have got this answer. Peace does not mean stopping the war for most of the people. Peace is more than that. Peace is justice, reconciliation, and a lot of effort to be invested. I have learned during my studying, training, and being a Rotary Peace Fellow at the University of Bradford that peace has many principles, and we cannot shorten it with just one thing. Pluralism, rule of law, governance, freedom of expression, social justice, citizenship, and joint action. But the most important thing that I have learned that working for peace require us to be courageous. Back to those last 4 minutes I have spent at the borders, my choice was to keep carrying all the workshop stuff with me to complete the first peace-building project of my city in Syria. This program later on prepared many peace activists to carry the message of peace and keep working for it till this moment. And here I am today talking to you about this experience. Thank you all. Thanks to Rotary Foundation.
We now travel from Mozart in Vienna, and we fast forward 100 years to Grieg in the fjords of Norway. In 1884, Grieg wrote this piece for the 200th anniversary of the death of Ludwig Holberg, who was a humanist playwright born in 1684. And Grieg wanted to dedicate the piece to his memory and base it on 4 dance movements of the time of Holberg. So there are 4 movements here, and please feel free to applaud at the end of the 4th. I'd like to introduce our leader for this piece, is Krzysztof Wisniewski. Krzysztof was born in Poland and now lives in Spain, where he is the leader of the great Extremadura Orchestra. And so, with pleasure, I hand over to you, Krzysztof, and the orchestra for Grieg's Holberg Suite. I'd now like to invite Philip Hall, the sub-principal viola of the BBC Symphony Orchestra, who's played with us for many years, come and just say a few words about what it means to a musician to play in this unique orchestra.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, I just wanted to say a few words about what it feels like to sit in this group. I first played with WOP in 2005, and ever since that first rehearsal 15 odd years ago, I realised that this was no ordinary professional orchestra. Now, you might think that an orchestra comprised of section leaders, concert masters from all over the world would be like an army of generals or a refuge for an egomaniac. But the amazing thing about WOP is that everyone who is invited to play willingly gives up their time, often travelling great distances from as far afield as Mumbai, Melbourne, and even Manchester, and not for any financial gain or self-promotion. They are happy to sit at the back, middle, or indeed the front of the section, but wherever they sit, they contribute an overwhelming amount of positive energy and love for their art. So much so that afterwards, one experiences an enormous musical high which can stay with you for days. We go back to our own orchestras enriched, and that's better than any payment. It's why we return again and again, and makes us long for the next one. Now, we are not so naive as to think that we can solve all the world's problems by playing in a symphony orchestra. But we hope that some of the positivity that we experience transmits itself to our audiences, and in turn makes us all better people, which can only be a good thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. Thank you all. We now come from the fjords of Norway to the English countryside outside Worcester, where the young Edward Elgar grew up and wrote in 1892 a serenade for strings for, believe it or not, an organisation called the Worcester Ladies Orchestral Class. And Elgar conducted the first performance of this with the Worcester Ladies in his orchestral class in 1892, and it consists of 3 movements, as you can see from your programme. It will be directed by Laura Samuel, who is the leader, the concertmaster of the BBC Scottish Symphony Orchestra, and has come all the way from Glasgow. Laura, please. Enjoy Elgar's Serenade.
Thank you very much. I now have the singular honor to invite once again one of my colleagues, Mr. Hassan Fahimi. Hassan Fahimi is from Afghanistan, and he is a gender equality and women's rights champion. Hassan, for the past 9 years, has been working with the United Nations promoting women's rights. And that, by the way, is a very, very modest description of this little great Afghan called Hassan. You're welcome.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Given my short time slot in this program, I have to read my speech so that I can be on time, so that you have more time to listen to this amazing music. As David said, 38 years ago, the United Nations adopted a resolution to name the 21st of September as a peace day, to promote the culture of peace and coexistence around the world. This decision was made in the wake of many atrocities and woes faced by the human being due to the conflicts and war around the world, including the world's wars. Yesterday, there was a protest in Oxford in support of combating climate change, because this year's theme for Peace Day is combating climate change, a phenomena that also threatens the current and future life of human beings. Climate change is closely linked to world's peace in many ways. Evidence from the field suggests that many conflicts have been caused by the climate change. So our generation does need to combat this phenomena today to save our generation in the future. Let me share a few words about my experience of conflict and peace. Returning from Pakistan as a refugee in 2004 to Afghanistan was a time that, unfortunately, Taliban, who had been overthrown from power by the US in 2001, had just started regrouping itself to resume attacks against the government, NATO forces, and the innocent people of Afghanistan. Since then, I have been working and living in a country that experiences violence and conflict in its worst form on a daily basis. Almost every day, people lose their lives either due to the airstrikes by the government and international forces, or by the suicide attacks and bombings at the terrorist groups like Taliban and ISIS. In this conflict, unfortunately, I've lost some of my close friends and family members, 2 of them this year, at the hands of terrorist groups Taliban and Daesh or ISIS. One of my close friends was unfortunately beheaded early this month by the Taliban because my friend was working with Afghanistan Human Rights Commission and because he belonged to Hazara ethnic group. Despite all these challenges, however, I have continued working for my country and for my people, mainly on gender equality and women's rights issues. Under the Taliban regime in 1990s, girls, as you may know, were banned from schooling and women from work outside of house. Men had to grow beard, and music was banned at all. Fortunately, this brutality ended in 2001, but unfortunately, this was for a short time. Today, we are in war. In the month of August, for example, on average, 74 people were killed on a daily basis this August. Having said this, the International Day of Peace, 21st of September, carries a lot of significance because this day, the United Nations urges all nations to contribute to the promotion of peace and stability of the world. So what does peace mean? As you can see, for Afghans and maybe many other nations in war, peace means immediate absence of war. Peace means immediate cessation of violence in conflict. This is manifested by the interviews of many people in Afghanistan who unanimously refer to the 3-day ceasefire in 2014 as the peace days. However, this is not the real meaning of peace. Peace may have different connotation to you. I'm reading a quote about what peace may mean. Peace does not mean an absence of conflicts. Differences will always be there. Peace means solving these differences through peaceful means, through dialogue, education, knowledge, and through human ways. Peace also means when people have the freedom to fully exercise their human rights, political, economic, social, and cultural rights. For example, being able to choose to participate in concerts like today, which unfortunately is not possible in many parts of Afghanistan. That's why a wedding hall was attacked by ISIS last month, causing death to hundreds of people, because music was being played there, and because those people belong to certain minority groups. As a Rotary Peace Fellow, I remain committed to advocate for peace building anywhere in the world, and as a women's rights activist, I will always bring up gender equality and women's rights issues up wherever I go. I would like to thank the Rotary International and the Rotarians for supporting me through the Rotary Peace Fellowship Program, which enhances my academic knowledge to be a true peace builder in my community and for the world. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Hassan, for those very moving words. For our last work, we go across to St. Petersburg in Russia, where Tchaikovsky wrote his Serenade in 1880. Tchaikovsky's hero, since he was a very young man, was Mozart. And he wanted this piece to be a homage to Mozart's Serenade, which is where we began the program. So we thought it would be appropriate to end with Tchaikovsky's version of his Serenade. We're going to be playing 3 movements from it. And the first movement will be led by Eric Lacroute, who is the concertmaster of the Paris Opera Orchestra. And the second and third movements will be led by Philippe Aiche, who is the concertmaster of the Orchestre de Paris. We are very proud and happy to encourage, while we still can, the Entente Cordiale, and to have France's 3 greatest concertmasters here playing together with the others in our first violin section. So I look forward to hearing these 3 movements of Tchaikovsky's Serenade, and over to you, dear orchestra. a lovely audience and wanted to send you away with a big smile on your face, we have prepared a little encore, a little sugar plum for you, which brings our journey through Europe back to where it started in Vienna. But 100 years later, in 1892, when the Strauss father and son and brother Joseph were operating. And I've asked Eric Chapman, first violin of the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra, to direct this piece and to pluck up courage for the Pizzicato Polka by Johann Strauss. Ulga's given me a little chance to see, quietly slipping in, you may not have noticed her, but my wonderful right-hand tour manager, Jackie, and Christine, I hope if you're here too, they are my right and left hands, and without them, I couldn't put this band together. So thank you very much. Jackie was, in her time, a professional percussion player. The Pizzicato Polka by Johann Strauss.